right, when we're drawing geometric type objects, well, or really any object, but we're just going to go with the geometric ones because they're straightforward and a little more kind of simple because we don't have a lot of variation. But the best thing to do to make that transition between something that's 3D, that has height and width, but also depth, so it's three-dimensional, into something that's 2D, height and width, like the piece of paper, is that there has to be something that translates it, just like a foreign language. So if I'm gonna speak English, but then it needs to go to Spanish, right? There's a translation that has to happen, and that is not any different than drawing. So it's something that you can learn and ultimately get good at if you practice. So I'm going to think flat, right? I want to think like things are two-dimensional. So I'm going to start by creating reference points for myself, and I'm going to use just pencils for that. And this pencil is parallel to my eyeballs, which means it runs the exact same direction as my eyes. I'm going to put that right in front of the object closest to me, which is the cube, the little block. All right, and then I'm going to take a second one, and I'm going to put it over here to make a right angle, or make it look like an L, essentially. All right, now all I have to do when I draw is translate that L, or those reference points, into lines on my paper. All right, so there it is. Now I have reference points. So from here, because I'm still thinking flat, I'm going to draw the flat part. So I'm going to draw this triangle that I see on the table here and here. All right, this one over here. And just draw in that triangle. Remember, you can always use sketchy lines and clean it up later and erase ones you don't need later. All right, so now I build up, because just like a house, you have to start with the foundation and then you build up. And in this case, we've got vertical lines, and I can see 1, 2, 3. And if this were a solid, I really wouldn't let me turn it, so it makes more sense with the solid wise. See there how now it looks solid, so I don't see anything in the back. 1, 2, 3, all run the same direction. So it's important when I draw them, 1, 2, 3, that they all run the same direction, right? Vertical. Verticals are vertical. That means they go up and down. So they're all straight up and down, or as close as I can get it, right? From here, I just do what I call railroad tracks, or the same line. So this one, and this one are all the same line, just like here, here, and here are all the same line. So I'm going to look for those lines that are parallel, and I always run it a little longer so I can make sure that it's going the right direction. All right, same thing here. So I've got this one, and this one. All right, the tendency is to raise these up, but if you can see, if I do this, then my box gets wonky. So to lay it down or settle it down, I have to make sure it runs the same direction as the other lines. So now that I have this cube, I would just decide which lines I want to keep, darken them up a little bit, and erase out all the extras. And then I have that first object drawn. Okay, now I can use this object as reference points to draw the next object. So I'm going to go to whichever one is the next closest. In this case, it's my can. It's a cylinder. So when I observe this, I can see that the bottom of this can tucks in about halfway up the side of this, maybe slightly above halfway, all right? And it would kind of end in here if you imagine that line coming down. So when I come down to my drawing, I'm going to lightly just imagine it coming in here. I'm going to put that in there, and I can check this shape on the table and see if it's pretty close to that shape on the table. From there I build up, remember? So vertical and vertical. So I'm going to do that up, and this part here comes off almost just inside the corner here, so I'm going to put that vertical in there. Now railroad tracks on a cylinder, remember all of these lines that ran the same direction? Well, this line and this line do run the same direction. Okay, so that's easy to put this and copy this, but then what do you do with the one on the other side? Well, let's take a real quick break here for a little lesson. You take your finger and you trace this shape on your screen. What do you get? Go ahead, trace the shape. All right, I hope you said a circle, because that's a circle. We're looking at it straight on. But if I set this down where it was before, or somewhere close to that. All right, and now I trace this. Go ahead, trace the edge of that. Is it a circle anymore? No, it's not a circle. Now it's more of an oval or an ellipse. Okay, so now that I've identified that basic shape, one trick that I do is I'll close one eye and I just take my pencil and I trace and trace and trace, and I get some muscle memory going. Now don't move your head, just move your hand right down to your paper and put in that same shape. All right, it's kind of a nifty little trick. Now in this case, it can't go past this, right? Because this stops at the edge. So I might have to adjust it just a tiny bit. Okay, it's not a football. If it looks like a football, it's the wrong shape. All right, there's a little bit of an illusion on my drawing. Let me fix that and that. There we go. Okay, so there again, I would come in here, erase out all my extra lines, and voila. Now I have my two objects, okay? Can you see this line that happens back here between my background and my paper? Notice that it's above the bottom of my objects. Okay, that's our horizon line, or the very last part of this that I can see. So I'm gonna come in here and I'm just gonna put a horizon line in above the bottom of my objects. Now I drew mine a little higher than I see it here, but that's slightly arbitrary because in this case, I just wanna make sure it looks like these things are sitting on a table and not floating in space. All right, so let's go over those steps really quickly again before we go.